So once again, welcome back. I just started recording, everybody. We just did a little review, people kind of funneling in here. I'm going to go into the Schema Builder and we can take a look at some of our standard objects. What's standard mean if we're talking about an object?
Out of the box.
It means
Object.
It's out of the box.
Object.
Yep.
Out of the box object. Standard
That's
object.
Yep. So anything that's standard, it's going to be out of the box or it's already been done for us. So the idea here is if you can meet your requirement with standard functionality, you always should. You don't want to have a custom object called company. There's a lot of reasons for that, but if they've already slayed the dragon for us, there's no reason to go dragon hunting, right? We've already got it. What was a lead? It's an object.
Yes. Actually, the prospect that
Well, it could be.
finalizing.
Always a prospective client?
No, it's not. It can be.
It can be, and hopefully it is. But generally speaking, it's a marketing object. It's for unqualified potential business relationships. I said it was best thought of as a business card. How do we qualify leads? What do we use?
KPIs?
KPIs are key performance indicators, which are fields on the records themselves. Number of employees, rating, industry. Those are some standard KPIs. Generally speaking, we also create custom KPIs based on our requirements. And if you want, you could create a score field with a formula field and score that lead based on the data entered. What do we do if the lead is qualified?
Then we convert it into a account, opportunity, and contact object.
Well, we can convert it with the button, right? And that becomes an account, contact, and opportunity. It kind of explodes. What happens if it's not qualified? What do we do?
Maybe delete it.
Well, you can go to the lead process, which is this status pick list here, and we can set it to closed. That lead status pick list is our business process on the lead object. If we go in platform and look at it, running slow today. If I look at a lead record here, Sam, our unskilled, lower paid resource, is going to go to this list and say, all right, there's some new open leads in the queue here, right? Go into the details section and fill out the empty fields. Ask them the questions and get the fields and enter them. Then if it is qualified, they'll convert using the action up here. Or they're going to set the pick list, which is this milestone up here, to close not converted if it's not qualified. And we said if we do convert it, it becomes an account, contact, and op. What's an account?
Standard object.
Standard object. What do we house in account records?
Actually, the leads resource.
Well, it's like a company file. I think about it like if you had a manual filing system. The account record is what you would write on the outside of the file. It's the file itself, because housed in it are going to be our contacts, opportunities, cases, and whatnot. What do you think allows me to have these related lists on the account record?
permissions?
Well, permissions, the page layout, that's true. But more importantly, what I'm getting at here, it's the relationship fields. You go to schema and look. Here we go. I've already got it open. Anybody else's allergies killing them right now? Terrible time to have allergies. So see the relationship here? This field, this lookup data type. If everybody could mute if you're not speaking, I'm getting a little background noise, please. Thank you. See this account name field here? It's a lookup to the account object. That field itself is what allows you to have that related list. So you can see that the account object has a contact related list and an opportunity related list. And that's kind of how they sit on the record page. So if you don't have the ability to see the related list, it's because there's no relationship field. So as we move forward, you'll be able to see what's related to what, because these little tentacles here pointing to these lookup fields. They're literally a field on the child. These are parent-child relationships or one-to-many. What's a contact?
Name of the person that
Contact is
holds
a person at an account, right?
Yes.
What's an opportunity?
Upcoming projects.
Opportunity for revenue is what I always think of. Anytime you're making money, it's an op. Is there a business process on our opportunity? I think this is where we stopped, wasn't it? So if I take a look at an opportunity record, best practice is always going to be to start on the account record for your users. Always start at the account and work from the related list. So if I go to an op record here, we take a look, notice this business process at the top of the page. This is what they call a path component on the record page. It's really just a pick list. It's this stage pick list. Business processes are always stage or status pick lists. And notice as we move through our business process here, the probability will increase. There's a dependency there. So as we get closer and closer to close loss or close one, the probability of closing it goes up. This allows us to forecast. There's also a close date. This is an estimated or actual close date. Estimated if it's not closed yet, actual if it's actually closed. The account is logged on the opportunity up here in the form of this lookup field. But what happens is we start out in this first stage, and then as we contact them and get closer and closer, we're going to keep moving that stage forward in our process. If it gets lost, they set it to close lost at 0%. If they win it, meaning they got paid for it, you go ahead and close one and on to the next one. This is for sales. This is the main for-profit object in Salesforce. If you're a for-profit entity, you should always be using the opportunity object. Questions there? What could happen after I sell my product or service? Genwatt sells an engineered product, manufactures it, and sells it. So what could happen after we sell it?
Goes to a case.
Could be a case, a support ticket, an issue or question, right? Use the case object for this.
I'd argue that maybe it could turn into an order or eventually an asset as well.
Well, if it's an order, okay, yeah, so you're getting a little bit deeper into the standard functionality here.
Okay.
But yeah, that's true. I don't necessarily teach. That's more advanced administrator stuff.
Okay.
But you're correct. There are other objects that would work in Congress with the what happened? I mean, a lot of times my clients will say, "Oh, well, you could get another chance to sell something else." Well, what would you do then?
You create another opportunity.
Create a new op on that account, right?
Yeah.
In this case, we're saying it could be a question or problem. So
Okay.
we use the case object for this. What is it related to? Can you tell by looking?
Account, right?
Contact.
Contact an account and self lookup.
Yep. There's a self relationship here where we can relate a case to another case. It's a field. You go look. It's the parent case field. It's a lookup, looks up to itself. It also is a child to the account, so it would be a related list on the account if you wish. See that? Same thing with the contact. Notice that there is no relationship between cases and ops. Cases are opportunities for support people. Opportunities are for sales. Cases are for support. If I go in platform and look at a case record, you can see it's set up very much like an opportunity, but the desired outcome is closing it. Not winning or losing, but just closing it. We call the business process on the opportunity, that stage pick list, it's known as the sales process. On the case object, it's known as the support process. This is going to be important when we get to record types. If I go to a case record, starting with the account is a best practice. I'll go to Burlington here. Just search BURL with an asterisk here. This is called the global search bar. It's going to break things down and give us search results based on object. So if I go to Burlington, and then I'll come down here to one of these related cases, you can take a look. So there's feed and related here. The details are kind of hiding over here in this component. But there's our process. Business processes are always notated as a pick list, a stage or status pick list. This one's known as the support process, with the desired outcome of closing it. Questions there? In Classic, they used to have something called solutions. It's not supported in Lightning anymore. But it was kind of like a telephone pattern. If I switch to Classic, back in the old days when you would call somebody and they'd actually answer the phone, they'd walk you through like a troubleshooting process. This is Classic, by the way. But if you went to a case in Classic, there was this solutions related list. This is pretty much legacy at this point. But it allowed you to look up a solution and assign it to the case. That's not really how we do this anymore, necessarily. How do we like to solve cases these days? Any thoughts?
Through chat, maybe?
Could be a chat situation.
Could be like a community where they
That's the
troubleshoot
way we like
themselves
to do it. Communities, do you know why?
because they can do it. They can become self-sufficient, right, on their own.
Well, that's not why we like it. I mean, that's nice for them.
So you can solve it once and it gets propagated to everyone else?
Well, what we've done is we have taught our users how to solve each other's problems, so now I don't have to hire service people. Make sense? If you look at the Salesforce community in Trailhead,
Right.
now this is their outwardly facing kind of web-based solution for this, so it would be millions of dollars and thousands of lives, all right? But we can also have an app in our own org internally called the community. And it functions a lot like this, only we would have to purchase licenses for them and they would have to log into our org. But a community in Salesforce looks a lot like this. So we've got, for instance, answers. If you've never been to answers before, this is a valuable resource as a consultant or an admin or whatever, because if you can't find the answer on your own in the existing knowledge base, help and training, which is one way we solve cases through knowledge, we could create a knowledge base for our products and services at GenWatt, right, for our generators, and then allow them to go into that knowledge base and pull down product sheets or specifications or troubleshoot problems, all of that stuff. But if you get in a situation where you can't find the answer in the knowledge base, then you can ask the community questions. Now, Salesforce has what they call evangelists that kind of spur this on. But what happens is you post your question, and then somebody will post an answer, and if it's the best answer, you give them thumbs up or thumbs down. And then at the end of the year, if you get enough brownie points, you get the MVP badge. So once again, what does that cost Salesforce to give out an MVP badge? I mean, not very much. And they don't have to have internal people answering all of these questions. They just have people kind of stoking the community. So in a perfect world, if it's in the right industry, this isn't for every industry, mind you. But especially for tech firms, this is a great way. However, I will say, I've never seen a community that is as well done as Salesforce's community. Like if you go to the DocuSign community, it's a ghost town over there. So, you kind of have to stoke this and have people that are charged with making sure that this works. You got to have enough users to where there's activity. You got to somehow incentivize people to want to help each other. You know, the culture of Ohana at Salesforce is all of that is for their community. And it's very effective. It reminds me of the old school V-Bulletin websites back in the day, where you could learn how to garden or you could learn how to fix cars, or, before YouTube was big. It's a great way to solve problems at scale. Another thing they have is ideas. So if there's functionality that you would like to see in the future, you can create an idea, and then community members will upvote or downvote. And if it gets enough brownie points, maybe they'll release it on their next release. We could do the same thing internally at GenWatt. So this is how we like to solve cases these days, because it doesn't require labor other than the evangelist. Questions? In Salesforce, it would look, it's just an app. So if you go to the app launcher in Lightning, you should see a community application available there. We would have licenses that we would purchase and give to our community members that they could log in and operate within our community. Now, it's not cheap, but it's cheaper than labor. There's the community app there. Questions on cases, solutions, knowledge, communities, ideas, answers? That's all, that's all basically case related. See, there's our community app. Now we could add ideas, answers, a knowledge base, etc. here. I'm going to go back into Schema. Now, this portion of the class is what I call Salesforce 101, or the 7 main standard objects. You're not going to hear anybody else say that. I say that. You won't hear other people say the 7 main standard objects. But if you go and look, they are the real backbone of standard functionality. Right now, I believe there's only 6 that I've discussed. There's one more, and it's actually the first one, but I do it last. So I don't want to confuse anybody. It's a little more complicated. So if I go to Schema, Let me take a look here. So we have leads, accounts, contacts, ops, cases, and then solutions. This is still on the admin exam for some reason. So know what a solution is. Pulling this up here. Whoa, 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 stop. There we are. Notice that there's no relationship there. Although it is a related list on the case object, it's kind of hard-coded in there. So the 7th one is actually the first one in the series here. It's a campaign. Campaign is a marketing initiative. And frankly, this is pretty much legacy at this point. Stop. Because we have way better tools for this now, Pardot and Marketo, etc. But what's it related to? Campaigns are related to what? Can you see? Leads and ops. There's another object at play here that we're not seeing. It's called campaign members. Of course, it's 20 miles away. Wonky. Okay, stop. Here we go. So then, how is the campaign related to the campaign member? You guys hear me?
We can hear you. I think I lost your screen, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I
Here, you lost your screen.
Some little weird glitch there. Quite sure. There we go.
Can a campaign be related to an account?
Say again, sorry.
Can a campaign be related to an account?
That's a good question. Hold that thought. So,
Or a lead?
why didn't? Wow, it like glitched all the way back here for some reason. Sorry, guys, being a little glitchy. And let me back off a little bit. There we go. So our campaign is our marketing initiative. How is it related to campaign members?
The members were in the campaign.
Yeah, it's if you look, the campaign is the parent, the member is the child. See the little tentacle here? So the campaign members object is a related list on the campaign object. And what we do is we add two types of records. Can anybody guess what records we add to campaigns? Can you tell by looking?
Was it a lead and a contact?
Leads and contacts, just people, right? So we market to people, either leads or contacts. So to answer your question, hopefully campaigns generate leads or contacts. Does that make sense? If not, let's look at one. At least my RAM a bit here. So I'm going to go into my sales app and I'm going to look at a campaign. Okay, from the list view, I'm going to choose all active, and the one at the very top is going to be a direct mail campaign. So now I'm looking at this campaign record. I'm going to go into details. And you can see here that they're just kind of logging some info. There is a marketing process here, status pick list with the desired outcome to be completed. Start date and end date. Expected revenue, 2.5 mil, budgeted cost, 25K. All right, if I could pull this off, I wouldn't be here right now. So we know this is fake information. Another one is 23.5 in actual cost. I've never seen a marketing campaign come in under budget ever. Expected response is 7%. What do you think a good response is for a direct mail campaign? We're sending out letters in the mail here.
1.
Less than 1 usually. So we must be putting $20 bills in there or something to respond. 15,000 cent to make 2.5 million. Come on, please. Anyway, though, the important part's over here. Notice that we're logging the records that are going to be attached to this thing in the campaign members related list. So if I go to related here, and I come down here to campaign members, let's add some leads. You have to search them. I think I converted Betty. There we go, Mike Braun. So if I add Mike, you could also do this with an import, using the import wizard of the data loader. There is a process on the campaign here. Let's say it was sent, submit. So now he is assigned to that campaign. So then as we move forward, if I convert that lead, and then I'll go to the opportunity. So now it's an account, contact, and opportunity. The lead is vanished, but I'm going to put a dollar amount in the opportunity here so we can see it on the campaign. Voila. All right, now notice that this field here is looking up to the campaign. So that op is associated with this campaign. You can see it right on the op record. So now if I look at my details, we can see that I had 1 lead, it got converted, it created 1 contact, 1 opportunity, and there's $100,000 in outstanding potential value. If we would win it, it would show up in 1. But the idea is that we're managing and tracking our marketing initiatives. Now, as I said, this is kind of legacy. Most companies, if they're doing a lot of stuff with marketing, they're not just using the campaign object anymore. They're using some add-on from the App Exchange like Pardot or Marketo. They can do lead nurturing, a more robust process on the front end as far as leads are concerned. Any questions there?
Ryan, is your leads contacts, those can be related to the campaign as well as the campaign member? How does that differentiate from a related list? So I'm assuming that's a record type.
What? Campaign members?
Lead.
No,
No, not
leads and
like.
objects. Let's look at it in schema.
I guess when you say creating a record type within an object, how does that differentiate from related list?
Oh, okay. So forget about record type for a while. A related list, we got a long way to go before we get to record types. Related lists mean that there is a relationship. There's a parent-child relationship between 2 objects. It doesn't matter. Like in this case, campaign and campaign members.
Okay.
This relationship field right here, right there, that one. This is what allows a related list to exist on a record page. Let me show you. I think it was a little easier to see in Classic because the related list was on it didn't have its own separate tab. The way they have the record pages set up out of the box, I don't really like. Right? But when I say record page, here's what I mean. So I'm going to take a look at an account record, for instance. Okay, American banking. These are all related lists. You see this? What allows you to put a related list on an object in the record page here is that relationship field. So we had accounts and contacts and schema, right? That kind of. This relationship is what allows this related list to exist. If that relationship didn't exist, you wouldn't have the related list available. This is the detail section of the record. These are the related records to that account. So the account can have many contacts. An account can have many opportunities. An account can have many cases. And if you look in schema, that's exactly what this is saying. If I look at an account, where are the related lists here? Can you see them?
Opportunity, cases, contact.
That's correct. So when I'm looking at schema, this is the main understanding of schema. Is like I can see exactly what's going on if I know that these relationships mean that there's the availability of a related list. I know the account has a related list for contacts, a related list for ops, and a related list for cases.
So what you're saying is all the blue lines, those are all lookup relationships?
Well,
that
the
can
relation, yeah,
exist
those are
without
all
each other?
lookups, correct.
And then the purple one that is account to, I guess, a field in.
It's a hierarchical relationship. It's the parent account field. So you can have like
Okay.
Apple and then all the Apple stores, you know, hierarchy.
Right. Okay, understood. Thank you.
Good. If you know this, you know more than about 80% of the people using Salesforce right now. People don't know how this stuff is built, and they don't know how it's all related. There are a lot of certified people that don't understand how this stuff works. And this is why you walk in to walk into projects and their orgs are just butchered. Let me show you something I call the plunge.
Ryan, can you give an example of how that is so bad when people don't understand that? I guess.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. So if this is productivity and this is time, right? And this is 0 hour or the moment of implementation of technology, any technology, not just Salesforce. But if you implement, you'll have some standard of production. And then at the moment of implementation, you'll notice a drop, right? But in a perfect world, once everybody figures out what's going on, you get asymptotic on the why from this, right? This is what I call the plunge. And I know this is going to happen regardless. So we talked about waterfall development yesterday. This is what's known as agile development. So one of the things that Salesforce allows is the use of what we call point and click declarative development. It's not all code. I can use drag and drop techniques. I can create fields. I don't need to code everything like a lot of the on-premise solutions did back in the day. So if I know this is going to happen, what I do here is I start very restrictive. And very simple. Turn everything off. I take away visibility and I turn everything off. And then when we roll out, I'm just, as we move through the plunge, I've communicated with people and said, hey, I'm your contact here. If you have problems, we're going to have this plunge. There's going to be a period of time here where things are going to be discombobulated and a bit of a mess as we work through the issues, right? Let them know this is going to happen and be available to solve their problems. And as they're connecting with me, I'm adding functionality, visibility, turning things back on until they get back through this productivity line. And that's when they start calling it the system. Down here, everybody's saying, I hate Salesforce. So if you hear this, that is a really big red flag that it was not properly configured. If people say, I hate Salesforce, there's something wrong with how that org was configured. Some of you have probably lived in some of these orgs before. Down here, which objects do you think I want to handle first? Do I just want to roll everything out at once like waterfall, or do I want to do it in phases?
Phases and sprints.
So if we're talking about a manufacturer of industrial equipment here, right? What objects do I want to get nailed down first? What's the most important object?
Starting with the count.
Ops is the most important one, right? Because it houses what?
Inventory.
Sales.
The sales process. That is the main process of our company here. We have to get this nailed down. So in order to use the op record, what else do I obviously need?
Counts, contacts.
Counts and contacts at least, right? So at the very least, I want to roll out accounts, contacts, and ops, and I want them to know what they're for, understand them, be able to manually do their job. We can layer on everything else later. After we get this handled, maybe layer on the lead object up here. Campaigns and leads. Maybe we do cases up here. And, we just keep going. We keep adding functionality as we move away from 0 hour. But the key point is the way to get user adoption is simplicity. If you try to roll this thing out, like if you look at how this thing is configured right now, make yourself Bob Salesman in your mind and go to the sales application and look at how they have this configured. You think Bob's going to walk in and say, oh, great, look at all of this excellent functionality? What's Bob going to do?
Use a spreadsheet.
Like, oh my God, I'm never going to figure this out ever, right? That's what they think. So then they don't use it. Now, what I just showed you never happens, by the way. That's like what we would say in engineering in a vacuum. In a perfect world, that's what you would want to happen. But here's what really happens. What does Salesforce sell? What are they in the business of selling?
Licenses.
Licenses. Do they sell consulting work?
No.
No. So if you ask Salesforce, if you go to Salesforce and say, hey, can I configure it myself? What are they going to tell you?
Get a partner.
Well, I got news for you. You know what they're going to tell you?
You can do it on your own.
Sure. Now, not to knock our account managers at Salesforce. However, I hate to stereotype, but here's how they tend to be young people right out of school that don't know anything about the product. They'll sell you, they're selling you licenses and they're not necessarily up to speed. They are not a consultant. They're not certified professionals, generally speaking. I'm not saying across the board. So what'll happen is, let's say the owner of Genwatt had a buddy at the country club or whatever, and he said, oh, you got to get some of this Salesforce. It's great. We're saving all kinds of money, huge return on investment. Look at these great dashboards on my phone. He says, all right, I got to get me some Salesforce, right? So he goes to Salesforce and says, all right, we want some Salesforce. And they say, all right, how many users? Well, we've got 100 users. Okay, so which edition do you want? Well, I'm not really sure. Well, you know, most of our clients choose enterprise. That's $150 a month per user, right? Then they say, but if you buy it for 5 years, and we'll give you 15% off. Right? So they do some negotiation here, and they give you some value add to purchase a multi-year contract for less. So he goes ahead and he buys 100 licenses, enterprise licenses for 5 years to get this discount. Huge mistake, by the way, but it's all right. So then he says, well, I can configure it myself. And what they tend to do usually is hand it off to whomever it is in the office that does all the work anyway. So that person, we'll call him Sam, that person digs in and does his best, does his due diligence, and does the stuff he can figure out on his own, which tends to be custom object creation, field creation, pick lists, checkboxes, text fields. Custom objects when they shouldn't be used, way too many fields, not proper use of record types. And what happens is they fall into this plunge and they never get out. Does this sound familiar to anybody? At about 3 years, for whatever reason, it tends to be about the 3-year mark, somebody realizes they're spending 15 grand a month, and everybody is saying, what down here? I hate Salesforce. So because it was improperly configured, because it was too complex, they can't trust the data coming out of it. They're not using it in real time. They're using it more like a call report where they're just going in and putting in a bunch of BS, or they're only putting in the stuff that they actually sell. And it ends up being a glorified Rolodex that you're paying 15 grand a month for. And eventually somebody has a moment where they realize, hey, this isn't working out. So then they have to decide, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to keep it or are we going to ditch it? And if they keep it, that's usually when they hire me, and then guess what happens? The same thing that would have happened if they did it back here. The problem is I've got 3 years of bad behavior to overcome. They've done it all wrong for 3 years. So do you think it's easier or harder to do it this way?
Harder.
You think it's more or less expensive? More expensive. And it's amazing. I do business requirements gathering. I'll go out and I'll talk to their users. And they'll tell me everything they hate about Salesforce, how awful it was. They hate it. They don't trust it. It's a piece of junk. I can't believe they spend all this money. Here's all the issues. You can't fix it. I don't trust it. I hate it, right? But then as soon as you re-implement here, they say, that's not how we used to do it. You know, I find that as a consultant, I'm more along the lines of a social worker than I am a developer. It's getting everybody into a room, figuring out what their business process is, and then turning everything off and letting them start with that first main business process, get it nailed down, and then I layer on all of my other processes after the main one. Questions there on the plunge? I'll continue to talk about this for the rest of our time together.
Hey, Ryan, what are your thoughts as far as the role of the CSMs from Salesforce that's supposed to prevent that plunge from occurring?
Well, in my experience, what do? They send an email and call you once. I mean, they're not like, as long as you're paying the bill, they're not out there chomping the bit trying to see if everything's okay. From what I've found. I mean, Salesforce is going to service their large accounts with more vigor, or the ones that pay for that upgraded support. But if you go to Salesforce for help, there's way better resources. I never go to Salesforce for anything other than purchase licenses. They're just not the best. They make a great product, but they're not consultants. Some people may have had better experiences than I tend to work with small to mid-sized firms, so I don't have, 1,000, 2,000 user firms that I consult with. You really need somebody like me. You need a consultant that understands how to set one of these up properly. That's what everybody really needs. But they don't do it until it's, way down the line. I mean, they're not going to hire a consultant at first because it's expensive. Going rate for a good consultant in the States right now is anywhere between 85 and 150 bucks an hour. We'll see how that changes as time goes on. But right now, Chris could probably tell you some of the salaries out there for this stuff is, what's the average Salesforce admin salary? Chris, do you even know?
Anywhere from 90 to 110K.
Yeah. That's just for an admin. And a lot of admins would not know how to set it up. They would know how to feed and maintain an existing one, but they don't necessarily think like a developer might think because they've been taught by Trailhead, frankly. They haven't been taught with project work. They've been taught by a paint by numbers process. I like Trailhead a lot, but it lulls people into a false sense of security. They think, oh, okay, I completed that module. I understand, when I guarantee you, you don't. If you've completed the security modules, I guarantee you don't understand security. If you've never worked an actual project. But you think you do because you got the module. So during this class, I'm trying to give you, I learned from the School of Hard Knocks, banging my head against the wall for hours trying to make this stuff actually work in production orgs. So if there's anything I can do to shorten your learning curve, I'm going to do it. Because what I want you to be is an effective resource. You won't see people talking about schema very much. It doesn't make any sense, though. I don't understand. It's probably the most important feature that you have is from a development standpoint. Because if I want to see if something is related without schema, how do I tell if something is related? Does anybody know?
Running queries, I would guess.
No, you got to go to the object in the object manager. So if I want to see what's related to the contact object, I got to go to setup, object manager, contact, fields and relationships. And then I can see that there's a lookup relationship called account name that looks up to the account object. That's the only way to see it. Or in a report, you can see it in a report too, I guess. Questions?
Just to add a little bit of a context to this too, Ryan, as far as what I deal with, folks that are trying to get their first break into a Salesforce position and thinking that getting certified or being a Trailhead Ranger and having all these badges is what it takes to land that position because of Salesforce marketing or whatever you want to tee it up as. But the reality of the job market is the exact opposite.
Yep. It's a catch-22. It's like, oh, I'm a Trailhead Ranger. I've got 25 certs. Okay, demo security for me. That's where the rubber meets the road for me. If you can intelligently and effectively demo security, I can use you. You can be taught everything else. That's the calculus of this thing. If somebody busts out schema and starts demoing standard and custom objects in schema, oh yeah, that's going to make you look like a rock star. I got news for you folks. You can be the smartest Salesforce person on earth. And if I can demo and you can't, I'm going to get the work. Period. What I do is I use a tool called Snagit, and I record myself demonstrating certain functionality. And I do it and watch myself do it until it's like a magic trick. I toggle back and forth between schema and the platform. It is an art form demonstration. Do it as much as you possibly can. I'm going to give you a couple of demos that you can practice in this class. But if I can demo and you can't, I'm going to get the work. Just the way it is. All right, let's see. That was our 7 main. If I go back to schema again here, there are other standard objects that work in Congress. Now, I call them the main standard objects. Nobody else will. This is not Salesforce functionality or terminology here. It's what I call them. These 7 were kind of the original backbone. There's actually 8 here, but campaigns, leads, accounts, contacts, ops, cases, and solutions. There's another one here called task. What does this one tell me just by looking? What can we tell?
It's related to all of them.
It's related to all of them, therefore it will have what?
Lookup relationship.
There are a lot of lookup relationships. That's true.
They have related lists.
That's it. The task will be a related list on pretty much every object there. Do you see that?
Ryan.
Yes.
Just one clarification question. When looking at the lookup relationship versus the master detail relationship, does it mean that if in account there's a master detail relationship to the parent account, it will always show up linked to the parent account in such a way that it's one to many on the parent account?
We're going to cover that later. So just hold that.
Okay, sorry. It's just,
no, you're
I
fine.
see
You're
here.
thinking ahead. I like it, but the relationships are a little confusing. I want to get a little further down the pike before we go there. It's a great question. It's just another relationship type. They both have different powers or abilities, but they're both one-to-many. And they would both create a related list. So they have that in common.
Thank you.
Yep. There's also event. These are calendar events. Notice same thing with that one. So a task is like a to-do. An event is like a calendar invite. We have products and price books. What is a price book related to?
Ops.
Related to opportunities, it's the parent. So a price book can have many opportunities. There's also an object called opportunity product. What is this one related to?
Opportunity.
Related to the op, right? So there's a related list on opportunities called products. And it's kind of a weird situation. It houses both the price book and the product. So if you look at any op record, I'll use best practices, go to the account record first. And then I'll go to an opportunity record. Now here's your tasks and calendar events. A logged call is just a completed task. You know what an email is. But then down here in our related list, you'll see this products related list. First thing it'll ask you is which price book do you want? Once you're in that's like a catalog, the price book. Then once I'm in there, I can add the products. And what the product does, I'll do this 1,000 kilowatt diesel here, GC 1060. It's like line items on an invoice. What it does is it fills out the product, and then it also locks the amount field. See? So now we're itemizing products and services. That's products and price books. We'll create some later. This is all just kind of high. We're going to do all of this stuff hands-on. I'm just kind of trying to give you a minimum quality of understanding here before we get started. Questions on those? Moving right along. You guys learn anything yet?
Oh yeah.
Not too bad for a few hours of time, right? So, a couple days ago, you probably would have looked at this and been like, oh my God, what is that? But now you can see there's, you know a lot more about what's going on here. We have a bunch of tables, and we relate those tables to each other, and we're embedding our business processes in these tables, which is what we would do if we were creating a custom application from scratch. But all of this stuff exists for us right out of the box. So if you can use it, you should. Another reason is if you go to the App Exchange and you download a managed package from a provider, they're going to think that you use these objects properly, as intended. If you have a custom object called company and you're not using the account object, is the developer going to know that? So you want to use standard functionality as much as you possibly can. If it's a person, what object or objects would we choose?
Contact,
Or
account,
not for a person.
leads,
Leads.
What's the difference?
Contact's already an opportunity, right?
Well, contacts have been converted, so they're a qualified business relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where a lead is an unqualified business relationship.
right?
I don't let my sales users in a perfect world see the lead object at all. What does a salesperson think a lead is?
10% shot of making that an opportunity.
They think it's a potential client, don't they?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What is the definition of a potential client, knowing what we know now?
But it can be our customer.
Revenue.
Well, think about it.
Money.
Yeah, so think about it if you're talking about in the platform. You have an account with an opportunity that's open, right?
Yes.
That's a potential client. A lead is not necessarily a potential client. It's an unqualified potential business relationship. It's really a marketing object. I usually, if I can, have one person that does nothing. If they get enough leads to allow it, incoming, they have one person that does nothing but lead qualification and conversion. Do you think that conversion process confuses salespeople? Did it confuse you? I try to, when we're plunging, I want to keep the amplitude and frequency as short as possible of this plunge. So what might you do to shorten that plunge?
Take leads out.
Well, training back here would be nice, right? Maybe some trailhead exercises on accounts, contacts, and ops. And then, supporting, having enough people trained up to where you can scale as quickly and effectively as possible. If you start very simply and highly restrictive, you'll get through the plunge a lot faster. If you have everything wide open and too much functionality, you're never going to get traction. You won't get out of that plunge. Questions? All right. Where are we at here? Okay. So I logged out of Trailhead, I guess. So that was kind of the 101 portion of the class. Is anybody totally lost right now? It's okay if you are. That's good. Maybe I should monitor chat. Might be a good idea. Okay, good. Yeah, sounds like people, I'm preaching to the choir in here a little bit, as they say in the States.
No doubt, Ryan. No doubt. Trust me, I've been there, done that.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get our study guide out here. Remember, we're going to use that kind of as our agenda. It's nice not being under the gun as far as time. I'm usually trying to hustle. In most cases, I got to run through a stupid PowerPoint, and I mean, it's so brutal. Oh, not that one. Here we go. So we were kind of living down here, right here, with half of the relationship model. We haven't really talked about it 100% yet, but you get the general idea. So now I'm going to pop back up here, and we're just start moving down through the agenda here, or through the study guide. So org setup. Now, this is going to house the keywords that we're going to use to answer test questions. So you need to be able to define all of these and effectively demonstrate and explain them. So by the end of this class, you should be able to go through the study guide and demo and speak intelligently about everything on the study guide. If you can do that, you're guaranteed to pass. You're also going to be a pretty good admin too. This doesn't change very often. It's very seldom that they change this. This is the one certification exam that's kind of remained solid for as long as I've been in platform. So org setup, this is kind of like, what do you do to start? Well, I'm going to go to setup here. And then we're going to look for company settings over here in the setup tree. Company settings, and then company information. This is kind of like the user detail record for everybody in the org, for the whole company. It's like the company's user record. This name GenWatt, that's what we named the company when we created our dev org. We have locale up here. There are one of a few different test questions you might see in regards to locale. If you remember the following, you'll get one of them right. Locale, default locale, has to do with date, time, name, number, address, geolocation. This has to do with formatting. It's about the format of these data types of fields. So in some countries, the date has the day first, then the month. Other countries, vice versa. Names might be shown differently depending on the locale that you're in. Number fields, like in India, I believe they use a decimal point instead of a comma sometimes for like millions. Addresses might be written differently depending on what locale you've chosen. So the question will be something like blah, 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 locale question mark. And you'll have 5 choices. You'll have to choose 3 correct answers. So if you remember date, time, name, number, address, and geolocation, that's a free test question. I believe that's a fixed question. Just about everybody will see that. Currency locale is a little different. Currency locale tells me a number of things. Number one, it tells me that I'm in a single currency organization. So just the dollar, that's it. If I saw default locale, that would mean I was in a multi-currency organization, because then you could have multiple currencies. They can be enabled by checking the box. And it used to be you had to send a ticket. I don't know if that's still the case. You used to have to send a ticket to Salesforce to activate multiple currencies. Not sure if that's the case anymore, but what you do is you create a currency and then there's an exchange rate against your default currency. Questions there? What's an org?
So when you enable multiple currencies, then how will it work? How will it know that when to use which currency?
How does it work? Well, they've got, you create, let's say you got the euro and the dollar. And let's say the euro is 1.5 against the dollar. I'm not sure what they are now. But let's say I have an open op and a closed op. So depending on which currency the user is assigned, so if you have multiple currencies selected, there'll be a default currency on the company information page. And then there'll also be a currency on the user detail record. And Salesforce does the mental gymnastics for you, the conversion. So, you know, as long as that exchange rate remains the same, everything's fine. And it's based on date ranges. So for this set of dates, the conversion rate was 1.5. But then let's say later on, it's 1.25. Well, in that case, the closed opportunities will remain the same, whatever they were, because we don't want to be changing closed won paid opportunities based on exchange rate at that point. So that's going to remain the same. And then the open opportunities will change based on the new conversion rate. So in a nutshell, that's how it works. We don't do anything with it in this class. There's too much other stuff to cover, frankly. Because I think it used to be because you had to send a ticket. I don't know if that's the case anymore.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah. What's an org?
This environment.
That's our apartment, right? In the multi-tenant infrastructure.
Yes.
So this org ID, if Salesforce has a sheet called orgs, this ID field would point to our row on their sheet. Make sense? That shows us versus everybody else. The instance is where your data is physically being held, San Francisco, India, wherever they are. The instance is the actual data, where it's being housed at. You've got time zone in here. I'm in Eastern Standard Time. I usually take this opportunity to change it and show you a very poorly constructed pick list. This is a terrible pick list. We've all seen it before. What's the problem with this pick list?
Too many entries.
Too many values, right?
Yeah.
I always forget where mine's at. Eastern Standard Time. Is it just the one? Eastern Daylight, there we go. And we could fill all this stuff out, obviously. There's also some information as far as what you're doing, API calls, data used, so forth and so on. More importantly, down here we have user licenses. What's a license?
What you need to access Salesforce.
Yeah, it's a seat, right? Or a username and password. The license gives us the ability to log in. Now, I'm not going to go through every one of these user licenses. What I would tell you to do is before you take the exam, look through standard user licenses in help and training. The main one that everybody uses is this Salesforce license. How many do I have? 2. How many am I using? 1. How many are remaining? 1. So as a consultant, one of the first things I do is I come in here and I look. This is a little small, isn't it? I come in here and I look, and if I see 25 licenses and there's only 3 being used, what would you do?
Leave.
Huh?
Leave.
Leave? Maybe. Well, for me, this is an opportunity to gain ROI with doing almost nothing, right? if their contract is about up, I'm going to tell them to cancel these 25 licenses and just keep 3. Do you think Salesforce will continue to sell you licenses whenever you wish?
Oh yeah.
Are you saving any money by paying for 25 licenses and using 3?
No.
No. So you get my drift there. That's a really good way. And when it comes to ROI, I am like, a mother bear when it comes to ROI. I come from energy efficiency. And a lot of that makes a lot of the same procedures, kind of make sense from a software development standpoint. It's trim the fat, do the light bulbs first because you get the best ROI for minimal cost. And then you work your way up to the big ticket items like HVAC.
Hey Ryan, quick
Yep.
question since we're on licenses. Do you ever find when you're doing your consulting work and you see those numbers, those offset numbers where it's 25 and 3, but you realize some of these people just don't have licenses, they don't even realize they need them, right? They're not utilizing the license in the right way.
Yeah, so generally speaking, when that happens, there's like 1 or 2 people in the office that actually use it and nobody else is using it.
Got it. So it could just be set up wrong or incorrectly or haven't
most
even
definitely
verified their
is.
account.
If that's happening, if you're seeing that, you know that it's a shit show. These are red flags, right?
That 3 use licenses could still be 1 or 0 actual users that are in the org, right?
You might even go look and see, are they even logging in? I've gone into orgs where they're all using the same license. The community license, where they're all logging in using Rob's license, right? Now, some of this stuff doesn't happen as much as it used to, but there was a time when this was truly like the Wild West. People were just handing this off to whoever was in the office and, nothing but pick lists and check boxes everywhere. It's important to note this platform license here. People mess up and choose the platform license instead of the Salesforce license. The platform license is for only custom. You can't use any standard applications. So the Salesforce platform license is less expensive, but you can only use custom developed applications. So in some cases, you can have an enterprise edition, which we didn't discuss editions, did we?
No.
I was supposed to do that yesterday.
I mean, I think there's some customers that just use platform. They don't even use.
That's correct.
CRM.
That's because they've developed all of their apps from scratch. They do that to save money, but there are some. Be careful with that, man, because you don't get it's not full functionality like you think. There's some limitations to it. I wouldn't push that on a client until you've done it or seen it done. It can get hairy. What was
right.
I
just heard customers saying, "Oh, we don't use
Core.
we use platform."
A lot of your app providers now don't use the opportunity object because they can provide their developed applications for platform licenses, because you don't get the opportunity object with platform. So here's your additions. What I would memorize is the names and the price for the exam. So essentials used to be group, and before that it was something else. It used to be a joke. But now I just did an essentials implementation, and it was, that's a pretty nice tool for $25 a month per user. The issues with the essentials edition is that it's a maximum of 9 users. It's also very difficult to give everybody access and permission. You almost have to make everybody an admin. So, all of these are set up to kind of move you to the enterprise license. So they have functionality that's specifically left out so that you'll put all your data in it, start using it, and then you'll get to that limitation and have to move up. They're very tricky about that. But the essentials license, if you've got less than 10 people, you know, it's a pretty open organization where you don't need a lot of restriction as far as who can see what. It's a great starting off point. Professional is the next step up. That one has more functionality than Essentials. You get 3 record types per object. I do quite a few of these actually. You know, that $150 a month per user for a small mid-sized firm that's pricey, you know, that's not cheap. So I can usually get them started on professional and then move them up to enterprise after we maximize pro. That's generally my selling point to my clients is like, look, let's get it built in pro. And then if we need functionality for enterprise, we can always move up, but you can't go back. Enterprise is that's the main tool. That's pretty much the license you'll see. Unlimited has, you get the upgraded support, which I don't know how good that is. I've never used it. And they also have more sandboxes available. So for your large enterprise level organizations, they're probably going to be using that unlimited. I'd like to see how much of this they actually sell. I bet it's a very small.
A quick question. For example, you started with professional and you set it up for quite some time, for almost like a year, and now you want to migrate to enterprise. So all of the configuration that you have implemented in professional, will Salesforce take care of that, or you will migrate it manually?
Yeah, so pretty much they're just adding stuff. So everything that professional has, enterprise allows. So you're just, they're upgrading your licenses to that enterprise edition and you're good to go. Same with essentials. I had a client, we started out in essentials. He found the limitations. He couldn't get the texting application that he wanted, so we had to bump up to pro. It was pretty seamless. And then from pro to enterprise is kind of the same thing.
Right.
So that's what I would just learn the costs and the names. There's also a developer edition that's free. We're using one right now. Let's see. So that's company information page. Also, on the study guide, they mentioned business hours. What do you think business hours do?
Allow the user to log in at those particular times.
You would think it was hours of operation, but it is not. They'll try to trick you with that. It has to do with when the support team is available. And specifically, it has to do with escalation rules, which is a form of automation on the case object. So it's not hours of operation. For our company, you're probably looking at a situation where our service folks are half in, half out, where they'd be in facilities working half the time, and then they'd have some office hours as well. So we would want to be sure that when we're escalating cases, they're not escalating to people that aren't there. Same thing with holidays. It's not just logging the holidays. It has to do with our business hours and support hours. So know that. That's a test question. They'll try and trick you there. Fiscal year. For some reason, they make a big deal out of this. But if you remember the following, you'll get any of these questions you might see right. With fiscal year, the key word to remember is Gregorian. It's the only time you will see Gregorian used in any Salesforce exam, period. So if you see Gregorian, you know they're talking about a standard fiscal year. It's just 12 months. You pick the start month, and whether it's based on the ending month or the starting month. You're going to ask your bean counters, your accountants, what your fiscal year is. Now, in some cases, their fiscal year doesn't start in January and end in December. In those cases, you have a custom fiscal year. Keyword there is going to be 445 or 13 weeks. If you see either of those, you know they're talking about a custom fiscal year. 2 4-week months and a 5-week month. 13 weeks in a quarter, 13 periods per year. Any of those would be keywords for a custom fiscal year. Once we go to custom, we cannot go back to standard. But you can configure a custom fiscal year to meet the requirements of a standard. You memorize all of that, you got a couple of test questions there you might see. So Gregorian for standard, 4, 4, 5, or 13 weeks for custom. Once you go custom, you can't go back to standard. But you can configure a custom to meet the requirements of a standard. Any questions there? Good. Moving right along. Currency, we kind of discussed. Default settings, this is one term here that I have never been able to figure out what it is they're talking about. So if you can figure that out, you get a gold star. I don't know what they mean by default settings. So I've looked for it in help and training. I can't figure it out. So all I can think is it's the settings on the company information page, but I'm not quite sure. So forgive me there. Distinguish between the various UI features. UI, user interface, you'll hear it referred to as global user interface, is they're global. So it's either on or off for everybody. You'll find them in setup under user interface and user interface. So go to user interface and then all the way at the bottom. And it's just a bunch of check boxes here. Quick create, and here's the ones I tell people to memorize. So quick create, which is actually classic functionality. I don't know if they still have that as a choice on the exam, but it used to be. Enable, so anything with hover, if there's hover in an answer, it's one of the answers, because there's like 4 or 5 things with hover in this huge list. There's some down here, hover links. So quick create, anything with hover. Inline editing. Inline editing means that when you go to a record, you do not have, it's the little pencil on the field. You don't have to hit edit in order to edit the record, the edit button. So it's a productivity feature. Enhanced lists are the little pencil in list views. So being able to change a list view inside the list view, that's enhanced lists. Printable list views is the little printer icon on the list view. Collapsible sidebar. This was a classic functionality that I used to teach, but it's no longer needed. But those are just some. If you want to know what any of these do, just search them in help and training. Just like copy it and then go here and search the documentation. I mean, from a usability standpoint or just an effectiveness standpoint, you know, and you can dig around and find out what they mean. But I would memorize quick create, anything with hover, inline editing, enhanced lists, printable list views. That's probably good. But they are global. They are on or off for anybody. So if they talk about enhanced lists and they say that only one profile needs it, you can't do that, right? It's for everybody or nobody. That's UI settings. Questions? You know, none of this is really rocket science. I could probably teach this to a 9-year-old, but when we get down here, it's going to get, next class is going to start getting hairier. So let's see, 35 after. Just, okay, search settings. Nobody ever remembers this one. It's like the whole class I go back and review, and for some reason, people don't remember this. But search settings, if I go up here in the global search bar and I search BURL with an asterisk and hit enter, it's going to bring up in the search results a list of records here. Oh, it's because I'm in setup mode. You got to be in the app. That's a feature of Lightning that's what you can call it, a feature. Kind of drives people nuts. Didn't used to be that way in Classic. So BURL, enter. So that's going to bring things down and isolate them by object. Now note the fields that we see here. Does anybody see any problems with these return results? Put your admin hat on here. What don't we like?
Blanks.
Empty fields. I mean, it looks to me like we're not using this account site. That may or may not be the case, but let's say we're not. So what these search settings are going to allow us to do is change the fields that show up when we search something in global search. And this is something that your users are going to use all the time. I mean, global search, that's where they live. So we want to make this as streamlined and valuable as we possibly can. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the account object in the object manager. And then I'm going to come down here to search layouts. And right here are the columns displayed. What I want to do is edit and remove account site, just like that. Save. So now if I search BURL with an asterisk, I'm in setup mode again. See how that's kind of annoying? But your users are never in setup mode. So now that account site field, oh, this is an extremely annoying thing about Lightning. My first Lightning implementation, I almost threw my computer out the window because of this. You have to hit refresh on your browser. Because right now you can see that account site field is still there. You're looking at a different version of this return results. You gotta refresh your browser to see the changes. I was going in and making all these changes and trying to develop, and the changes weren't showing up when I do it, and it was causing me all kinds of problems. And then I realized, oh, it's the browser. So if you change something and you don't see the change, the first step is always refresh your browser just to be sure. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the contact object. So I'd like everybody to do this. Go to your account, remove account site. Go to contacts, remove account site, and go to opportunities, remove account site. And if you could, just give me a yes when you get finished in chat. Same thing for contacts. Just go to your object manager, choose your object of interest. And then we're going to go to search layouts here. And I'm just going to edit and remove that account site field. Now the same thing with opportunities. Now generally what I would do here is I would sit down with somebody in sales and say, hey, what do you want to see here? And just kind of create it with them. How's that? That look good? Okay, anything else that might be good here? Make your life easier so you can work from those results. Less is always more. You don't want a million fields on here. Just what they would need at that point. Now I should be able to go back into my app, the sales application. Don't forget to refresh. And there we have it.
Ryan, real quick, you did all that through Object Manager?
Yep. Search layouts on the object of interest. Very top. Default search settings or whatever it is. I like these little 2-hour sessions. It's nice. I'm used to doing at least 4. It's so easy to get burned out though with classes that long.
Hey Ryan.
All good?
Yeah. I don't think I have this org set up, the Burlington. Do I need to do something?
You did what? I'm sorry.
Like when you're putting this company name Burlington.
Up here?
Yeah. For me, it doesn't appear up. I mean, do I need to set it up first?
Look up here in the top left-hand corner. Does it say sales or are you in setup?
Oh yeah, it's set up.
Yeah, you're in the setup mode. Remember, I said that's kind of an annoying thing with Lightning. You have to be in the app for the searches to bring back results as far as data. You can search setup with the global search bar and look for like user interface, for instance, but it won't let you. If I go into setup, mine won't do it either.
Oh, okay.
So if I try to search it here, I'm in setup mode right now, and nothing's going to come up. Whereas if I do it from the app, it will. So with that, that brings us to questions and homework. Does anybody have any questions about anything before I? The question in chat is, how do I change the search on the search layout? Sure. So we're going to go to setup, and then we go to the object manager, and we choose which object that search result was on. So for instance, the account object was the first one I did. So I'd go to the account, object manager, account, and then down here is search layouts. And this very first default layout here is your search results from the global search bar. So I just hopped in here, hit edit, and I popped account site over. And that removed it from the results. I did that for all 3, accounts, contacts, and ops. That help? Cool. Did everybody get the recording link? I'll probably just pop it into the main post on LinkedIn, and then I'm going to try in the off time to get both of these sessions on YouTube for everybody. Homework. Right now we're on the administrator beginner trail. So from the admin beginner trail, let's go ahead and do this module. So this will give you some hands-on as far as objects and creating relationships, and then we'll do some more of this at some point next week. And then why don't we go ahead and do this one too? Lightning experience customization. This will give you some hands-on, kind of preemptively strike for when we get into this part of the course as well. So data modeling and lightning experience customization, and that'll be due on Tuesday. This is admin and app builder. We're learning both at the same time. The question in chat was, is this course only for admins or app builder too? If you look at the study guides for admin and app builder, they're about 85% the same test. So at the end of the class, we will have a little bit more on automation than you would normally have for admin, but app builder and admin are very, very similar. So we're learning both. Admin is, can you feed and maintain an existing organization? App builder is, can you develop custom applications using standard and custom point-and-click declarative functionality? So they're very, very similar as far as concept and terminology. If you pass admin, you pretty much everybody always passes app builder too. I've had some people say they thought app builder was easier. I just think that they're the scenario questions are more wordy. Anybody else? Tell your friends about the class. I got plenty of room. So if you've got resources internally that need some work, you know, everybody's sitting around with nothing to do. Let's take our minds off this stuff for a while. It's been great. I feel, you know, I forgot about it for at least 40 minutes there. Thanks, everybody. Keep in touch. I'll see you on the first module was homework for last week or from Tuesday. Oh, I'm sorry. I see what you're saying. This one we did on Tuesday. This one, data modeling and the lightning experience customization will be due on Tuesday. So if there's nothing else, we'll get out a little early today and enjoy the rest of our afternoon. Thanks, everybody, for your time and attention. Thanks, Usama. I hope it really is. I'm enjoying it. Thanks for the collaboration. We'll all be dangerous by the time this gets done. Have a great day and a great weekend, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Stay healthy.
Bye, everyone.